Professor Hennie Strydom is with the University of Johannesburg and joins us now. Prof, appreciate your time this afternoon. Now, Israel has agreed to implement daily 4-hour humanitarian pauses in the fighting in northern Gaza. Just what can be done in a space of 4 hours, do you think?
Well, not much. I think it's too little to make a significant impact on relief operations and to get what is needed to those most in need, the civilians, hospitals, and so on. But I think it is a start, and at least if this works, we will hope, it can hope maybe, that this will be expanded to allow more hours and more pauses in the hostilities for aid to get through, and in larger volumes, because that is absolutely essential.
Now, Prof, you say in that statement that if it works, so what's the greater plan? What are they trying to establish from allowing this 4-hour window?
Well, as far as I could establish, this is a sort of concession that was made as a sort of initial concession, and I don't think that we will have to be very hopeful at this point in time, because we will have to see, first of all, how this is going to work. And as one of the commentators said, that it's absolutely essential that this is properly coordinated and that the parties to the hostilities comply with certain conditions to see that it happens, and that they sort of play the rules that should be played in order to make this effective. If that's not going to happen, if this proper security is not going to be provided, it will have little impact, if anything at all, on the civilian population and what they need.
Now, Professor, I'm not sure if you're an expert on war, but I know you're an expert on international law. So if we paint a picture of how this is likely to work, what are the incidents or the likelihood of casualties beyond that 4-hour period? Now, if it is not well coordinated and that window is opened, what happens at the end of the window if people are still in transition within that corridor? So whether it's the Palestinians or any aid that is being driven through the corridor.
That could make them extremely more vulnerable, because if they are in a position where they are exposed and hostilities commenced at the end of the pause period, then there could be more casualties. And I think that is what concerns us all, and why this is a very, very precarious situation, especially for the civilians who could be trapped during that period.
Now, the fact that this is the first stoppage in fighting, if you will, in the month-long conflict that we've seen, does it suggest that Israel is making progress in this process, in this war?
I cannot answer your question because we do not have the facts on it. All that we can see at this point in time, and this is very clear from the news reporting that's coming through, is that the military objective is still pursued. And it seems that it is pursued on both sides. And as long as both sides think that they can achieve what they want to achieve through military means, they will pursue that objective. And this is what worries me at this point in time. I don't see any proper or long-standing ceasefire in hostilities, because we have not reached the point where that could become feasible.
Now, the one thing that we've picked up is that the pause are not indicative of a broader ceasefire, right? So is there any hope of an actual ceasefire in the not-too-distant future? I mean, if we go back a few weeks ago, in fact, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has continually talked about annihilation of Hamas. Is Israel any closer to that annihilation? I mean, the destruction, obviously, is evident.
The destruction is evident. I doubt whether it's closer to that objective of annihilating or wiping out Hamas. As far as I could tell from the little evidence we have on this specific point, the hostilities are very much sort of, there are fierce battles going on at this point in time. But it's very difficult if you're not on the ground and you do not know or do not have proper evidence of what's going on. It's very difficult to make an assessment of where we stand with this conflict and with the objectives that are pursued at this point in time by Israel and probably also by Hamas.
Now, many parties have called this a genocide of sorts. Would you define it as a genocide, Professor?
I would be hesitant to use that word because of the legal definition for that. What we can be certain about that war crimes and crimes of humanity have been committed on both sides. And that is as far as I would, comment on this at this point in time. But it has all the potential to develop into a genocidal offensive. But at this point in time, I'm very hesitant to use that term. And because of the direct intent that is needed in order to say, well, genocide has been committed. I know that it's been used by politicians and other commentators, but from my own perspective, I'm very hesitant to do that.
Now, indirect talks in Qatar involving CIA Director William Burns aim at a larger release of hostages held by Hamas. Do you see this happening, or will Hamas want to hang on to... I think. So sorry, carry on, Professor.
I think the chances are good that Hamas would try and hang on to it, to the hostages, and to the bargaining potential thereof for a longer period of time to see what concessions they can get with that sort of staged release of hostages. I don't think there are any good signs at this point in time that all the hostages, those who are still alive, will be released soon.
Now, I want us to rewind to the days before October 7th, which is when Hamas obviously went into Israel, killed those many individuals, and obviously abducted a number of them. There was a process in which Hamas planned this, and they seem to have planned it exceptionally well, because the Israelis were caught off guard, as was the rest of the world. Now, in that planning stage, did you think Hamas, in their wildest dreams, would have imagined this amount of annihilation from the Israeli army? Had they planned for this? Did they see it coming?
Well, I think from past experience, they should have known that the reaction would be fierce. Whether they expected that it would be of a scope and nature of what we are seeing now, that is a debatable point. But they should have known that the response by the Israeli Defense Force will be fierce, and that we could have a catastrophic situation. And it has now developed in a fiasco of epic proportions for the civilian population. And saying that they should have known that there will be a fierce reaction, I think it was cynical to sort of accept that, well, maybe that's a price to pay. And I think that at this point in time, we have not seen any indication of a sort of slowdown in the destruction that's going on and the dangers that the civilian population are still facing on an hourly basis.
Professor Hennie Strydom, appreciate your time. Department of Public Law, University of Johannesburg.